The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Well, everybody, I know this was the outcome you all were expecting after the Monday night disaster, just less than 6 days ago or 7 days ago. The Redskins pulled it out at home, and a lot of people, including myself, to be real, had some doubts, but they pulled it through. So, with that being said, we are here with the post game, and it is again a two-man crew. The other two are MIA and AWOL, and they need to be punished. I don't know how, but it's going to happen some type of way. Maybe when they get back, we don't allow them on the show.
Yeah, I think Alex may be dead. I'm not sure Alex is a living human being anymore, first of all.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
I mean, he's not allowed time off in the middle of the season. I don't know. You can't miss 3 shows in a row.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but as you guys can hear, Steve is the co-host with me today. Steve, how are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Honestly, unexpected victory. I'll certainly take it. But feeling very good about it. In spite of the fact I had to go to a sports bar again, which I absolutely loathe. But it's all good. It's okay.
Eventually, you're gonna understand that there are methods of watching the game online, in which you could probably watch on your desktop or your laptop.
Yeah, but see, the problem is, number one, you guys know behind the curtain that my internet is not necessarily quality internet all the time, but and so when I watch it online, the streaming is just, it's so spotty. Sometimes it freezes and you miss a play and this and that, and then I have to live tweet at the same time. It just, unless I have 2 laptops sitting in front of me that both work well, it's just too hard.
Okay, I understand now. Makes sense.
But being the type of person that I am, you know how much I hate things like sports bars, but I got to do it. It's for you, people. It's for you.
Well, I'm pretty sure the people appreciate you. So
at least somebody does.
Yeah, see? So Steve, let's go ahead and get right into it. Just your overall thoughts about how the game went in itself, how the Redskins played, and how they, managed Cam Newton and company.
All right. Well, you want me to do stats before I do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let's go ahead and do the stats, and then you get into your overall thoughts.
All right. Alex Smith was 21 to 36, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, quarterback rating of 88.1. He was sacked 3 times. Adrian Peterson was the leading rusher, 17 yards, 97 yards, 5.7 yards per attempt. He was just so close to the 100-yard game. You can blame a penalty on that. Alex Smith was 6 for 13. Capri Bibbs, 2 for 11. Samaje Perine, 1 for 3. And Maurice Harris had the one carry as well. It was 1 for 6. Leading receiver was Vernon Davis, 3 receptions, 48 yards. The ball really got spread around a lot today. Jordan Reed, 5 receptions, 36 yards on 9 targets. Paul Richardson, 3 for 31 on 5 targets. Josh Doxson. We had a Josh Doxson sighting today, people. 3 for 20, 6 targets. Maurice Harris, 3 for 13. We had a Brian Quick sighting, 2 for 12. And then Adrian Peterson. We also had a Michael Floyd sighting who got a target, if not a reception. At least he got a target. And on the Carolina side, Cam Newton was 27 of 40. 40 attempts is just crazy for Cam Newton, by the way. 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 93.2 quarterback rating. He was also the leading rusher, 9 carries, 43 yards. Christian McCaffrey is 8 for 20 for only 2.5 yards per reception. Devin Funchess, better known as the Quentin Dunbar killer, was 5 receptions, 74 yards, 8 targets. DJ Moore, 4 for 59. Greg Olsen, 4 for 48. Christian McCaffrey, 7 for 46. On defense, DJ Swearinger had the one and only sack for the Redskins on the day, and he was also the leading tackler with 7 tackles. So that is stats. Now, in terms of my overall impressions on the game, I don't know. It's amazing what 6 days does for you. You know, I don't necessarily think the offensive line had the greatest day in the world, in pass pro at least, but defensively, I mean, the Redskins looked worlds apart. You know, they did not make the big game-killing mistake. You know, and I think once the Redskins had a handle on the Carolina passing or rushing attack, that's a pretty good sign that it's going to be a decent day. You know, yep. So much better. Congrats to the Redskins on a much better performance all around.
Yeah, and another thing too, just to look back, think about how we based our projections of our game predictions off of the previous week. It's kind of crazy because I think all of us had us beating the Colts after it was a mixed bag of reviews against the Cardinals, and then when we lose against the Colts, people felt like this team wasn't ready yet, so we predicted we lose to the Packers. I mean, not majority, but just the emotional swing in terms of how you pick your game outcomes, and then you get blown out by the Saints. I don't think any of us had us beating the Panthers, and it's kind of crazy because you bet with your I said bet. See, look, that's the gambler in me.
You are the gambler.
Yeah. So you make these picks based off your emotions, and it's not necessarily logical, but the facts remain that this team is resilient under Jay Gruden. You know, they had one too many double-digit blowout losses in a 5-year span. That's something that is concerning. But however, they moved their records to, I believe, 9-2 in those bounce back games under Jay Gruden. Yeah. So it just shows how resilient they are. In terms of this game, though, I kind of agree. To be able to first and foremost, for the most part, you control Cam Newton, meaning keep him in the pocket for the most part. There was some times where he escaped it. I mean, it's going to happen. It's Cam Newton, but for the most part, you control him or contain him. You did a good job in making your tackles. Like, it wasn't necessarily a lot of whiffs, just in general. And that's very important because when the ball is checked down or he throws something in between 5 yards or under or near the line of scrimmage, you make your plays, and that's exactly what they did. There was some issues, however, and we've all seen this. The drags, the crossers, all that stuff for whatever reason is still an issue with the Skins secondary and how to defend it. I personally, I'm not even going to talk football right now. I don't know. Because I'm not in the locker room, I'm not in the meetings, I'm not in practices. I don't know what the hell is going on. And I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be the one to explain it or try to make sense of it. I don't know what's going on. They literally ran back-to-back plays where they scored the touchdown and then they ran it for a 2-point conversion again. And both times the crosser was wide open. Like, there was not a soul in sight, and it was only a 2-yard play. I don't understand it. But however, my point is there was some concerns in the secondary early on. Devin Funchess, I mean, he's just proven he's becoming a better receiver every year. However, he made the right side of the defense look pretty foolish. The left side of the offense, obviously. But yeah, it was kind of frustrating to look at initially. They were having their way on that side of the ball, throwing away from Norman. So that's just one thing to be worried about, as well as the pass rush. But overall, a strong victory, consistent for the most part throughout the day, and that's what's important when you play a Panthers team. You have to match their intensity, and you have to be just as physical, and they proved to be that today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You want to start with the Redskins offense here?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Look, I think what we've established here so far in this young season, we're only 5 games in, is that the Washington Redskins are a running team. And what I mean by that is that they've had 3 victories. The running game has worked. They've run for over 100 yards. Adrian Peterson averaged 5.7 yards a carry today, 4.7 yards as a team. That includes all the junky runs, there by Alex Smith, etc. If this team gets rolling on the ground, typical good things happen. I don't think this is a team that seems to be good enough to, they're not the Patriots. They just can't exist without a solid run game. The 2018 version of the Redskins, at least. And so that was a good thing. I think the offensive line, we all criticized the offensive line last week against the Saints. They were terrible in basically every way. The offensive line still was not great in pass pro. They were letting the Saints get pressure on Alex Smith in just a 4-man front in some cases, and they were getting, they were causing him to move. They were getting pressure on him. He got hit a couple times, but Peterson had run lanes, for days in some cases, and that is thanks to the offensive line. That was despite a banged up Brandon Scherf, and as we record this, we still don't know exactly what's wrong with him. They had shots of him sitting on the bench, like holding his head. It looked like he had a concussion or something, but I don't think that's his problem. So we'll have to stay tuned for news on that. The other thing that I like to point out here is that the Redskins really made a concerted effort today to call plays in which a wide receiver was the number one option. Paul Richardson, 5 targets. Josh Doxson, 6 targets. Maurice Harris, 4. Brian Quick, 2. And so my real quick math says that is 17 targets. Now, Smith had 36 attempts on the day, and so 17 of those targets went to wide receivers. And that's a good thing. Paul Richardson probably looked the best out of those, but Josh Doxson had some decent reps. He lost on the 150-50 ball down the sideline. It's going to happen. But overall, I like the idea that they made an effort. Clearly made an effort. The game plan called for the receivers to be more involved.
Yeah, and here's a question before I and I agree. It was a solid game plan and solid. I wouldn't say execution for the most part, and this is what I was going to ask. Is it me or? And I hate to make Josh Doxson a focal point, but I'm just asking, just between, it's not even on him per se. It's more so just the relation or how it seems like the cohesiveness between him and Alex Smith. Does it just seem like they just can't get together? They can't get right outside of the hashes. Like that's just something that I've been noticed throughout the season. It's kind of frustrating, because Doxson, he doesn't have a problem, working the middle of the field and running short to intermediate routes, getting inside. But anywhere outside, it just seems like it was an issue in terms of Alex Smith's accuracy. And then I wouldn't even say Josh Doxson is. You just haven't seen much because there's a lot of incompletions. And there's a lot of uncatchable passes. So that's what I was getting at. Do you think that it's like what's really going on? Do you notice something?
Yeah, well, I think number one, Alex Smith's accuracy, mid-range and deeper on the sidelines is a whole lot less than what I thought it was going to be. He misses a lot more balls, especially those sideline routes that you're talking about, and a lot of those are Doxson, just because he's the X-receiver. And a lot of those I put on Smith, not necessarily the receiver. I was expecting a more accurate deep ball thrower than Kirk Cousins was, and I don't think we have that. At least we haven't seen that in Alex Smith here so far in this 2018 season. He seems to have a really good connection with Vernon Davis. Yeah. He seems to connect with him real well. Not surprising, given they played together in San Francisco. They've known each other for a long time. Jordan Reed had a decent day today. But Reed isn't – this is the first game, really, he's had an impact, of any noticeable – I guess he did in week 1. But beyond that, Alex Smith seems to he connected well with his tight ends in Kansas City, too. Before they had Tyreek Hill, it was sort of a tight end thing. It was Travis Kelce or bust. He had that one year where they didn't throw a touchdown pass to a wide receiver all year, remember?
Yep. I remember that, like 2013 or 2014, one of those.
Yeah, one of those. So to answer your question, I think I put it more on Smith. His accuracy is not what I expected deep. And so a lot of those sideline routes I put on, it just seems like I don't know if there's a lot the receiver could have done. Doxson has missed some of those. Doxson has been responsible for some of those, no doubt, in prior weeks. But if you have to assign a percentage to it, I think it's probably, I don't know, 60-40 Smith at least.
Yeah. That's basically what I was asking. I don't know what the issue is, but it just seems like for me, it gets a little frustrating to watch Alex Smith target a guy who can, that's, if anything, if all the complaints that we have of Doxson to this point in his career, there should be no complaints about his ability to get that 50-50 ball, and that really goes down to outside the hashes and downfield. So it's just frustrating looking at Alex Smith when he has those opportunities. It just seems like there's a lot of passes that sails, whether it's an overthrow or maybe out of bounds. It's just a little frustrating. And even in the out route, sometimes he overthrows them too far out of bounds. So that's basically what I just wanted to know and get your opinion on. But
I think that ball sailed more than anything on those for some reason.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And what I will say for the offense, like I said, I agree with you for the most part. And I think the one thing that this Redskins offense needs to do is find a way to stay consistent in the ground game, meaning it doesn't matter at what point of the game, you have to remind yourself that. I mean, look, even still, like when the Saints went up, I don't even remember. I put that game behind me. I don't know how far they got up. So in the first quarter, but even when they went up 7-0, you just started to see that the passes was, or maybe the run game was taking a back seat to the pass game, and you weren't really out of the game. You weren't out of the game when you're down 2 possessions. You're still not out of the game early in it. So I just think that the Redskins offense and the play callers, Jay Gruden in particular, well, he's the only one. He just has to make sure that he stays consistent and believe that this ground game will work eventually. You have Adrian Peterson in the backfield. He's capable of taking one. Personally, I think he can still do a house call, but at the same time, he's a guy who can get you 5 to 7 yards or 3 to 5 yards when there's not much there. So you have to remind yourself to stay consistent throughout the game. And then also, I do give a lot of credit to the receivers today and Alex Smith for finding these guys and giving them opportunities. But I do have an issue, and it just goes to the point that the offensive line is something that should be talked about for the most part. It's kind of how can I put it? I wouldn't say alarming, but it causes concern because when you're playing these bigger guys, these bigger defensive linemen or better defensive linemen, you run into these issues of pass protection throughout the game, and that's just something that we ran into the last 2 weeks. I don't know how many times was Alex Smith sacked today. I don't know that exact number, but
it was 3. He was sacked, I believe, 3 times.
Okay, 3 times and a fumble. So.
And they got lucky on.
Yeah, they got lucky on. Lucky. Yeah. So I just think that the things that they have to work on is something that has to be, it has to get better a little bit sooner. And that's more so staying consistent in the ground game and more so pass protection in general. I don't have a doubt with them in the run game because I think those holes will, they'll develop for themselves. Adrian Peterson's capable of doing these type of things and helping your offensive line out. But in terms of pass protection, yeah, it's going to have to.
It's not been up to par, up to what we've seen in years past. And with a more mobile quarterback than Kirk Cousins, you'd think the sacks have been less, would be a little bit less. But it's truly a protection problem. Here's what I think about Jay Gruden and the run game play calling because. You mentioned that at the beginning of your talk there. I think that if it goes well very early, Jay has a tendency to stay with it, even if it's not always successful.
Yeah.
And in this game, the very first play of the game was Adrian Peterson. It was a zone read left, and he got 8 yards. That possession didn't end well, but the very first play, success. And Peterson had a couple carries early that went really well. It was a good rep for Peterson. And I think when you have that, Jay tends to stick with it. If it goes south immediately, like it did against the Saints, he just something in his brain snaps, and he starts going with the never-ending series of checkdowns and wheel routes and square outs, and that's what we see. I just think it's kind of the nature of Jay Gruden's play calling. I just think he gets frustrated with it really easily when it comes to running. So I don't know.
No, I mean I
But
agree. I think he does get frustrated, and if he doesn't get frustrated, it's more so he well, I guess frustrated and impatient. They're kind of the same thing when we're talking about this
yeah,
this stuff.
same
So
thing.
either way, he does get frustrated. So it's just something that he has to remind himself to just stay even keeled, because this is something that is, I mean, it works in the long run. Now, if you're averaging 2 yards a carry throughout the first half or maybe the first quarter, that's, I mean, obviously that goes to show that you have to, make some adjustments. I'm not telling you if it's not working, keep going at it. But if you have these type of guys that you're capable of remaining balanced with, you have to see where you are. So that's basically where I was at with it.
Yeah, and as long as we're talking run here, I also like to point out that I think if anybody thought that Samaje Perine was the number 2 back right now over Capri Bibbs, I think you're sadly mistaken. Capri, between the two of them, they only got 3 carries. This game, but Bibbs got a lot more run in the game. He got a lot more reps in the game than did Perine. I thought he looked like a stronger runner than Perine did. He hadn't fumbled. So I think, yes, both of them were up today, but that was because of Chris Thompson's injury.
Yep.
I think the depth chart now is Adrian Peterson, Capri Bibbs, and then Chris Thompson is obviously the third down back. I think Samaje is the lesser of the talents in the coaching staff's eyes now. So that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, hey, that's what happens when you can't
Keep hold of the ball.
Yes, thank you. You said it for me. When you have ball security issues, you're not that favorable in the coach's opinion. And to be honest,
I feel like I'm.
Huh?
Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just gonna say, and to be honest with you, what the hell? I'm sorry. I was looking at Blake Bortles be stupid. But
See, you're distracted. I distracted.
yeah,
you.
I looked to my left and I was like, what is going on? But anyway, at the end of the day, I think that when you deal with the type of the stuff that P. Ron deals with, ball security issues, you're never really going to be a favorite, or it's hard for them to it's hard for you to gain their trust back. So it's just never going to be the same, really.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I'm being constantly negative about Samaje Perine, and I really don't mean to be. It's just I just got to be honest about it. But I mean, he's kind of shaping up to be Matt Jones Part 2.
I mean, as a runner, he's gotten better, but it means little when, I mean, we're talking about it already. It just means little when you have ball security issues. So you can't just say he's a better runner, like I just mentioned. You can't say he's a better runner and think that that's going to get him back on the field more. No. You just can't be trusted right now, and you're going to be the last guy they go to when they need a running back to run the football.
One of the keys to the game that you and I said on the game preview show was to get Jordan Reed involved. He was the most targeted receiver by the Redskins today, and it was a day when they really sped the ball around a lot. But Jordan Reed, I believe you said he needed 9 to 10 targets, and he had 9.
Okay, that's good.
Including, I mean, did everybody see the circus catch this guy made in the first quarter? I mean, insane. Jordan Reed has to have some of the best hands in the NFL. I mean, I've been over the stats. I mean, catch percentage wise, it's ridiculous how good he is. But I'm just talking about the eye test with his hands. Incredible. So overall, very good day for the offense. Smith's quarterback rating wasn't especially high, but that's just a number. It's just a number.
Yeah.
So who cares? So that's. Did you see anything else on offense to talk about, Jamal?
I don't think there was much else to talk about. I mean, outside of the simple fact that in the second half they did have their issues again. They had they sustained some drives in which they were, they milked the clock off, but at the same time it was we had 6 points in the second half again. No 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So even still, like in the Saints game, it was a blowout. You got your first touchdown in the second half, and all season actually. All season you got your first touchdown in the second half, and then you go back to 6 points and field goals in the second half. So it's something that's a cause for concern. It's always been there, but at the same time, overall, I only bring up these calls for concerns because it's just something that we need to
It's the truth.
Yeah, it's the truth, but we have to work on it moving forward, and it's just something that we've noticed every single week, and that's the only thing that bothers me is the fact that we've constantly seen these things. So that's the only reason why I bring it up.
I mean, it's not the only thing that bothers me. I mean, they've been inconsistent generally. I mean, yes, you're right in that the second half they just don't seem to be as good. But I mean, they go from a very solid running team to they can't even run 5 yards. We've been back and forth. Almost every other week with this run game thing. I'd like to point out 2 more things since we're on this. At halftime, the Redskins had already had 7 possessions, and I'm counting as 2 possessions the series in which the Redskins had the 3-and-out and punted, and the Panthers fumbled, and then we got the ball back. I'm counting that as 2. If you count that as 1 possession, then it's 6. But that's a lot for the Redskins for one half. We normally, like last week, I think we ended up with 9 possessions, I believe, for the whole game. They usually end up between 9 and 10. They had a lot of possessions, and then things slowed down. We ended up with 11 possessions if you count the victory formation play at the end. And the reason why that slowed down is that the Panthers got a couple of long sustained drives, and so that kind of slowed the tempo down, slowed the clock down. But the other thing is, y'all love to hate on Dustin Hopkins out there.
Oh yeah, shoot, I'm
because
one of
you
them.
have to.
I don't like him.
Yeah, okay, you're hating on him too. But the man kicked 3 field goals and kicked a 56-yarder. And yes, it couldn't have been 57 yards, but 56 was it. But he had a good game. I don't think Dustin Hopkins is nearly as bad as some of you guys out there do. So I wanted to show him some love because he had a very solid game. And 56 off the top of my head is at least close to his career long. If it wasn't,
it was his career long. And I mean, personally, I don't know about others, but personally, I do. I don't even call it hating for me because I just critique and I see for what it is, but I also give props. It's like I think a person who's hating doesn't give props when they're due, or they'll give a backhanded compliment. That's not me. Dustin Hopkins, he had a good game today. I just don't feel like he's consistent enough to consider him trustworthy. It's hard to really trust him in key spots, and that's just how I feel in terms of throughout the course of his career with the Redskins. We're not talking about really this year for me, but that's just how. I think he missed a field goal or 2 this year, I believe.
He missed 1 so far.
Yeah, so just saying in general, that's just how I feel. And today, Dustin Hopkins had a good game. There's nothing bad to say about him. I just still feel the same way right at this point. It's hard to trust him, but
that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's all it is. But I know there's some people out here who can't stand him.
The Redskins fans, I think, the one thing I've noticed after doing this show for, what are we on, our 4th season for this now? You're on your 3rd, I think.
Yeah.
Redskins fans have to have somebody to hate. And I'm talking about a Redskin player to hate. You can't go a week without somebody being the hated player of the day. 2 weeks ago it was Josh Doxson. He was the worst thing ever and he needed to be cut. Well, last week it was Josh Norman.
Yep.
This past week, everybody was talking about cutting Josh Norman. Yeah, he had to be cut. He's horrible. He's terrible. He's a bad attitude. He had his headphones in during halftime, which incidentally, we don't even know what that was all about. Who knows? He could have been listening to Tony Robbins' motivational speaking for all we know. I mean, who knows? My point is, I don't know. I mean, Craig Hoffman had the report. I don't know. Well, this week, Josh had a good game, so it's going to be someone else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it might be Preston Smith today. Yeah, I mean, it's usually the edge rushers. They get the grunt of the blame. So,
and it might be, but my point is that gets a little old for me.
Yeah,
seeing the relentless hate, for some, I don't know what it is. Hate the other team, but anyway.
Greg Minuski. There's a lot of people who can't stand him based on this last the fourth quarter in which he didn't give up any points. I don't think, or they maybe gave up a field goal. I can't remember.
What, this week? Well, they gave up 8 points.
Yeah, that was the fourth quarter. Yeah, the touchdown came in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Let's talk about defense. You want to talk about defense?
Yeah, let's talk about defense.
Let's talk about this. My personal key to the game, other than just not looking like a high school JV team like they did last week, it was to stop the run, slow down, I believe what I said was make the Panthers inefficient on the ground, and they absolutely did that. Christian McCaffrey, 8 carries, 20 yards for the game. Cam was 9 for 43, but that was one long run, and the rest of his runs weren't that effective. I think anytime you can keep Carolina from under 100 yards rushing, I think that you have a pretty decent chance to win against this game. And if you can get a lead against Cam Newton, usually he gets mad and frustrated and doesn't play well. Today he kept his composure and brought them back, and we almost got Redskins there at the end. I think in years past, that would have been a touchdown. It would have been a soul-crushing defeat. I think we've seen that 100 times.
Yeah.
But so I give props to the Redskins defensive line for that. Sack. I mean, we didn't put a ton of pressure on him, and that's fine. I mean, DJ got the one sack. They got only one quarterback hit on him, which was the Swearinger sack. But the defensive front and linebackers did a good job of stopping the run. They contained McCaffrey on the edge. Those linebackers beat him to the edge. Remember we talked about that too.
Yeah.
That was a key, and Zach Brown did that. Zach Brown was in the middle of some of those. So I give the Redskins defensive front seven props, and I think they were a major part of this victory because the Panthers tried to establish a run early up front. They tried. It didn't go well.
And I also like to give credit to Harvey Clemens, one of the nickel inside linebackers. He did a good job for the most part covering Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. And sometimes when they isolate Harvey and McCaffrey on the left side of the field. So I do give him credit for his role in today's victory and their game plan defensively. But again, I agree. The front seven for the Redskins played a big part. And like I said, I think we had mentioned pregame that these type of tests is going to come throughout the year, and this isn't the Saints and the Panthers aren't the only. They are not the only offensive line who's going to, or even run game that's going to be testing the defensive front for the Redskins. And for the most part, the Redskins came through. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Ioannidis. I don't really personally. I've seen one clip of, because I don't like to rewind during a game consistently.
I can't do that. Yeah, I don't like doing that.
So I saw one clip in which I saw Zach Brown out of place. I don't think he knew where he was going, but that I can't necessarily the inside linebackers just for that simple fact. I can't say how good or how well they played, but I know the defensive front, in terms of defensive line, they played well and they set the edge as well in terms of the edge rushers or the outside linebackers. So I do give them credit for this victory. The secondary, again, for the most part, they did well. The catches that Funches made was in tight coverage. It wasn't like they were all wide open. There was a couple plays in which DJ Moore broke over the middle, and credit to the defense for forcing 3 turnovers, by the way. One of the plays in which DJ Moore broke open on the slant, Josh Norman made a play and knocked the ball out of his hands. So for a fumble. So I do give these guys credit, but it's just not as well as the front seven played, and I give the front seven a lot of credit for rattling the offense of the Carolina Panthers. It's crazy though, they racked up 350 yards, but it's like when you're down. What were they down?
Well, they were down 17-6 at halftime.
17-6.
They were down 17-9 going into the fourth quarter.
17-9 going into the fourth quarter.
I'm sorry. 17-9 going into the fourth quarter.
All right, going into the fourth quarter. So yeah, it goes to show like when you're down that much, and I think they ended up being down 23-9 at one point too. So, or 23-6. Excuse me, 23-6, I believe. Or maybe 20-6. Either way, my point.
It was 20. They were down 20-9 at one point.
Oh, it was 20-9. Okay.
Yeah.
So my whole situation, my whole thing about this is just simply when you have that opportunity to milk the clock on the defensive side of the ball, you're just going to keep everything in front of you. And that fourth quarter just kind of showed. This is why another reason why people think they're playing prevent defense is not necessarily prevent defense. You just don't want to give up the big play. You give it the big play, then what happens? The Panthers are right back in it with plenty of time to go. You don't let that happen. You make sure you secure the tackles. You let everything happen in front of you and not behind you. So you're going to give up a lot of yards, but I think for the most part, when the game was actually still competitive, and I mean it was competitive towards the end, but that first half, which was very important, they did their job. I think they did their job.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, I up front made a point of saying that Devin Funchess beat Quentin Dunbar, and that was just kind of my way of supporting Josh Norman a little bit. But the truth that you said it, the truth of the matter is, I didn't think Quentin really played Funchess that badly. Funchess
He got
some catches.
embarrassed, but I mean, a couple times, but it was still in good coverage. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, Funchess was bigger than him and just beat him to the ball, a couple times in the air. I didn't think Quentin was terrible. I mean, he gave up some catches. What can you say? Most of Funchess' yards came on at the expense of Quentin Dunbar. I think only one of those catches was Norman. So it did happen, but I didn't think Quentin was terrible. Just another receiver got the better of him. What can you say? I mean, it happens.
And just also too, I don't think we had any offensive turnovers. I mean, I know we had the fumble, but we didn't have any turnovers on offense, did we? Yeah, and that's a plus. That's a +3 in the turnover category this year, the turnover category plus minus. And I just think that that's also something that's very important. I'm not going to complain too much about us only scoring 10 points off of 3 turnovers. I mean, because that just happens sometimes. The only gripe that I have actually,
it's the only gripe.
No, I should say the only gripe I have with the way like field position and stuff like that off of like turnovers or maybe even special teams would have been that one right before the half in which the Panthers gave up. They had a terrible punt because they were deep in their end zone, and we failed to capitalize off that. We didn't come away with any points because of penalties and just lack of execution.
I tweeted about that.
Yeah, the grounding play was just foolish. I actually personally thought that somebody was in the area. They would have cut them some slack, but they didn't.
Yeah, I tweeted about that. I mean, it takes a special effort to get the ball on the opponent's 30-yard line and not even get a field goal attempt out of it.
Exactly.
I don't know how you do that.
Attempt. So
it's just penalties, dumb penalties is what it is.
Yeah, and that's just one thing I'd say that I would call that type of change or quick field changes is simply I wouldn't say a turnover, but it goes into that statistic in which their offense or their special teams directly causes us to have a short field or and put us in a good situation to score, and we just blew it. So
yeah,
that's that. Are we good to go? Do you have anything to say about the defense, the rest of the defense?
Rest of the defense. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we said it. I mean, again, the summary of it to me is if you limit what the Panthers do best, which is run the ball, you have a pretty good shot at it. And no, the secondary didn't have the greatest game in the world, but the bottom line is the front seven made their run game pretty inefficient, and that's the key to beating Carolina Panthers, and the Redskins did that. And, I mean, look, I think if I were a Carolina fan, I might be a bit irritated about the play calling in the final drive when, they're in the Redskins half the field. But that's their problem, not ours, and so I give the Redskins credit for keeping the Panthers out of the end zone there at the end of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing about that little prevent thing. We were talking about it off air, just that prevent notion that people think that we're playing, and it's just not necessarily that. It's more so strategic efforts. Of course, you don't want them to move the ball down the field, but if you trust your defense inside the 20 where there's no room for error for the offense, and I'm not saying that was the plan because I'm sure he wanted stops. I mean, you will want the front seven first off, or not even the front seven, but you want the pass rush to get home, and they failed to do that. But right. At the same time, when you talk about inside the 20 and trusting your defense and your secondary and your front seven to get home on the blitzes that they send. Yeah, I mean, this is what happens. You put the ball in Cam's hands. You tell Cam to beat you. Cam couldn't do it with the pressure on him, and that's how they chose to play it, and it worked out in their favor.
Is there any chance the Redskins don't draft a defensive end or a pass rusher high in this coming draft? I mean, don't they have to do that? I mean, it's getting bad.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, this is 5 games in, and.
No sacks. There's the one sack last week by Kerrigan, and that there was a penalty which erased the yardage gain, on that sack. And Preston Smith has done. I think Preston's probably going to be the hated player this week, but he just hadn't done anything of note all year.
Yeah, and he had his one opportunity on Cam in the backfield, and he couldn't wrap Cam up. So we know what the issues are moving forward. It's a long season. Here's to hoping after a victory they can work on getting things a little bit more better too in these aspects. So we'll see how it goes. So after this, who do we have? We got the game balls.
Game balls. Yeah,
All
game
right.
balls.
So look, we had a victory today. So let's go ahead and get these game balls.
Right.
It's not going to be no Jordan Reed for the defensive game ball, nothing like that.
You gave yours to Jordan Reed on the defense, and I
Yep.
gave my game ball to Drew Brees
Yeah.
last week. So
none of that.
None of that. My game ball on the offense is Adrian Peterson again. This is the second one this year from me. I mean, 17 carries, 97 yards. He looked young. He looked spry. He had tremendous bursts there, and a couple of those just exploded through holes. There on a few of those carries. So I thought that was outstanding. And I'm going to show Josh Doxson Josh Norman a little love on defense. Give him a game ball. He got his first interception in what seems like forever. I think it was 20 games. And he had the other strip. On the fumble. There, I thought he played a pretty good game. So I'm going to give, not that I think the secondary deserves a game ball, truthfully, but individually he played a good game, and I'm going to show him some love and give him a game ball. So Adrian Peterson, Josh Norman.
Oh man, well look, there goes an opportunity to be. I had the same thing. I'll just put it out there.
You can say the same thing. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm about to say I was going to say there goes an opportunity for us to be different, but I don't think we're going to be different on this one. Adrian Peterson definitely gets the game ball, and so does Josh Norman for the exact same reason that you stated. Josh Norman, for whatever reason, turnovers have been hard to come by for him. However, today he forced two, had an interception.
Part of it is that people don't realize that they don't throw up until this past couple weeks. Teams haven't thrown at him very much. I mean, he doesn't have as much opportunity, to get interceptions, very much, just because they don't target him a lot.
Well, yeah, I give.
They have recently, but not in years past.
In years past, okay, I give him that. But they bring him in here to do certain things. He has to be a playmaker, and that's something that we expect out of him. And that's just the bottom line to it. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to force these turnovers. But he's been able to play decent coverage. Very well. I tell him he's been able to play good coverage. So Josh Norman, for those reasons stated, and then Adrian Peterson, the guy. I talk about him every single week. And I talk about how much I'm a fan of him. So there's nothing new this week. We know why Adrian Peterson gets the game ball. I wish I could give it to Jordan Reed. He has some highlight reel plays, but for the most part, I got to give it to Adrian Peterson, and he's the guy that keeps this thing moving on the ground. So
yeah, I'm happy to say I'm thrilled to be wrong about Peterson. I mean, what I was worried about Peterson before the season started was that he was going to be old, show his age, not be what he used to be. But it's been the total opposite of that. I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Injury rise real fast. The only injuries I noticed were Scherf and Doxson. Doxson limped off the field at one point in time. And Scherf, I don't know what was going on with Scherf. So we'll have to watch those two guys on the injury report in the coming week.
All right. So, Steve, do you got anything to go before we get off air?
If I'd like to put an APB out on Sean Conte and Alex East, if those two guys really are still on the planet Earth, please speak up.
Well, look, you got your ways of finding people. With your background, I'll just leave it at that.
I know. I'll call somebody.
Yeah, you got a way to get in touch with these guys, and let them know that they're permanently barred and banned from this show.
I think we need to put them maybe in timeout and for our first few minutes at the beginning of the next show, because if we bar them, we're gonna have to keep doing what we're doing, which is a little bit rough. So we want them on the show. They just need to have like a penalty.
You know what, Steve? You make excellent points today. You've been on target, 100%, and I cannot argue against any of that.
I have my moments about half the time.
All right. Well, look, I don't have anything else to add. The only thing I say is let's see how we're feeling. Who do we got next, by the way?
Dallas.
It's Dallas week. Oh, man. Okay. And so, we'll see how we feel Wednesday when it comes to this pregame show. But, look, we have a good week to enjoy this victory. everybody. Thank you all for listening. And I mean, look, it's Dallas week. I don't get too hype about these things like we used to be, but at the end of the day, we're fighting for something big. So far, only 5 games in, but first place, and we have a decent lead, or a half game, I'd say, on the rest of the division at least. So, look, we got a lot to look forward to. So appreciate you all for listening, if you're still listening, and looking forward to the pregame show, y'all. Thanks.
Later.